Hi there, I'm Rania Bird and I'm a fiber junkie. That is a journey decades in the making, and it started with my grandmothers, Louise and Marion. They were what you call back in the day seamstresses, but now we call everyone who sews sewists. And they were always sewing something. But my grandma Louise, she made sure that I was always doing something to keep me out of trouble. And so I took lots of classes at the local community center on Cavalier Boulevard in Portsmouth, Virginia. So I took macrame, I took cross stitch, and the thing where you pin, no, where you loom knit pot holders. That was big in the 80s. And also, my grandma Louise, she taught me how to crochet and she taught me how to sew. So ever since then, since elementary school, I've been doing fiber arts as a hobby. And then fast forward to many years later when I'm married, and my now ex-husband's grandmother offered to teach me how to knit. And I was like, sure, I want to learn how to knit. And she said, well, okay, well, we'll have to do it sometime when you come back and visit. Okay. So then she asked me that like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, sure, but then each successive time there was another reason why I couldn't that time. So the last time it was like, well, I don't have any knitting needles or yarn. And she was like, don't worry, I got some. Come on, I'm gonna show you how to knit. Her name was Amadine, and that's in fact what she did. She taught me how to knit, and I was like, okay, I'll knit. And I learned how to knit, but I didn't pick it up. She gave me the tools, she gave me the yarn, the needles, and a pattern that she had written out for an Afghan. Well, I never did knit, while she was alive, and then she got sick, she got cancer, and she passed away, unfortunately. And I was missing her something fierce because she was my buddy, and we would do lots of things together and talk all the time, like every week, just like my other grandmothers. And when she passed, I was really sad, and so I thought, well, maybe if I pick up knitting, I'll feel less sad about it. And I did. I felt less sad about it, and I haven't looked back. I haven't looked back, and I've been knitting since then. And I started with like Michael's acrylic yarn, and then once I found a local yarn store, forget about it. I was hooked. I was in it. I was all in, right? So I hopped around to different local yarn stores, and the one that I normally went to closed, sadly. But then I found one in Conway, Arkansas, and it was called a Twisted Pearl. And I became friends with the owner, Cindy, and I was knitting on commission, but I really didn't like it because people wouldn't necessarily use the yarn that I wanted to use, and they didn't want me to knit the things that I wanted to knit. So I was like, this is for the birds. And she was like, you know what, you should dye yarn. And I was like, I can't dye yarn, can I? And she was like, yes, you can. And I was like, I don't think so. So I didn't think about it until maybe a few years later, and I was like, you know what, I really want to have a business where I'm dyeing yarn. And the idea kind of took root. And in 2018, I wrote down that I wanted to be dyeing yarn full time, and I wanted proceeds from the yarn dyeing to go toward urban food garden cooperative here in Little Rock. That doesn't exist, not yet, but that's what I envisioned in 2018. Then we're going to fast forward some more to me finding tons of indie yarn dyers on Instagram, and I just fell in love. It was like, oh my God, look at all these people doing this beautiful yarn. I couldn't get enough of it. And I ended up following Nicole Frost of Frost Yarn, and she put out a call for a scholarship for minority indie dyers if you want to learn how to dye. And I submitted, and I won a scholarship to go out to California and take her intensive workshop masterclass on yarn dyeing, and it was fabulous. But of course, COVID, and that put the kibosh on that. So she started mentoring me. She's in California, I'm in Arkansas. So she just started mentoring me. And about a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years ago, I dyed my first batch of yarn. I dyed my first batch of yarn. And Nicole believed in me, Cindy believed in me, my friends and my family believed in me, and now I'm a yarn dyer. I dye yarn.